Hey everyone, this is Dr. Steve Orma, and today I want to answer the question, does anxiety cause insomnia? Does anxiety cause insomnia? Now, most people with insomnia have what's called sleep anxiety or anxiety around the sleep, worries about the insomnia, worries about not sleeping. So, this might be like, oh my God, am I going to sleep tonight? And, am I going to get enough sleep? Or they have worry about the effects of not sleeping. So that might be, am I going to, if I don't get enough sleep tonight, I won't be able to function tomorrow. It's going to impact my health. I'm going to feel really horrible tomorrow. I'm going to be in a bad mood. So, with insomnia, virtually everybody has this what's called sleep anxiety, which is just worry about the sleep or the impact or the effects of the sleep. And that's a common piece with insomnia. Now, but is the anxiety actually causing the insomnia? And then people have other kinds of anxiety unrelated to sleep. So you might be worried about your job, you might be worried about finances, you might be worried about your relationship or COVID or anything. And then maybe those worries come up in the night or when you're trying to sleep. Is that stopping you from being able to sleep? And so I want to answer this question today because I think it's a common belief that anxiety is causing the insomnia. And if you just take care of the anxiety and just treat the anxiety, the insomnia will go away. And I'm going to give you the answer to this right now, and then I'm going to explain in the rest of the video why. So the short answer is that anxiety does not cause insomnia or maintain insomnia. So the first thing is I talked about triggers in my last video, like, does insomnia have a trigger, meaning some event or stressor or something that happens that then causes the insomnia? And the answer to that was no, and I explained why that is, and you could go back and watch that video if you want the full explanation. So anxiety can be a trigger, meaning like something could be going on in your life, and then as a result of that, you're worried about it, and that comes up at night, and you're lying in bed, and you're ruminating, and that therefore interferes or makes it harder for you to sleep. Okay, that's not insomnia yet, but maybe it's interfering. You have a few nights of poor sleep because you have this thing weighing on your mind. That's not insomnia, okay? That could be a trigger, okay? But that could lead to you changing things that will lead to the insomnia. Okay, so we'll talk about that. But that is not the cause of the insomnia. That's just causing a few poor nights of sleep. Now, first, let's talk about what anxiety is. So anxiety is an emotion that comes from worry. That comes from, worry about something negative happening in the future. So with sleep anxiety, it's worry about your sleep, and it's a worry about not getting enough sleep or what will happen if you don't get enough sleep. And when we worry, when we have these negative thoughts around our sleep, then it generates the fight or flight response. That's the physical changes that happen in your body where your heart rate increases, you might sweat, you get, very alert and keyed up, you might have difficulty breathing. So there's all these physiological changes that happen in the fight or flight, and the fight or flight is our body's, built-in system to protect us against danger. So if you're worried about your sleep, whether this is, let's say, before you're going to sleep, sometimes people with insomnia worry all day long. That's all they think about is their sleep. Or sometimes it's just, maybe an hour or two before going to bed, you start anticipating going to sleep and you start worrying, oh my God, am I going to sleep tonight? And there's already this like dread about getting into bed. And the anxiety starts then. Or for some people, it happens once they're in the bed and then they notice they're having trouble falling asleep or going back to sleep. And then the worry comes then. And then that anxiety response that I just talked about. So anxiety is definitely a part of insomnia, but is it the thing that's causing the insomnia? Now, it does seem like it. If you have insomnia and you're experiencing this anxiety, it seems like it's the thing that's causing it, because if you're lying there in bed and your mind is going, or you're just, maybe your mind isn't even going, but you feel like alert and all keyed up and anxious, yeah, you're stimulated. You can't sleep when you're in that state. It's the opposite state that you need to be in to be able to sleep. So it seems like, well, if you could just calm down, then you'd be able to fall asleep. But this is not true. And you maybe experienced this, because the other thing that happens with insomnia is sometimes you're not anxious at all. Or sometimes, because you've had the insomnia for so long, you don't really worry about it because you're used to it. And you might be totally relaxed and calm, and you're lying in bed and you're still alert and wide awake and keyed up, and you're just lying there, even though you might be exhausted, even though you haven't been sleeping that much. You're still not sleeping. You're still alert. So there's no anxiety, but you're lying there alert. Okay, so there's something else going on. So the thing is what creates that feeling of keyed up is just this conditioning, or this association that has happened with being in the bed for a long period of time awake. Sometimes that might be you're anxious, and sometimes not be, but you're awake, you're alert, okay? And that, if you spend enough time in the bed awake and alert versus time in the bed sleeping, then that gets conditioned with the bed. And eventually, even if you're exhausted, even if you're, fatigued and you only slept 4 hours the night before, and you get into bed and you have no anxiety, and then all of a sudden you feel alert and awake and you can't sleep and you're stimulated. That's that conditioning. That's the bed is like a trigger now for waking you up. This might happen when you first get into bed to go to sleep, to try to initiate sleep. This might also happen if you have maintenance insomnia, where you fall asleep fine, but then you wake up in the middle of the night and you're lying there and you're keyed up and you're not anxious. You might be anxious, you might not be anxious. The point here is that keyed up feeling is not primarily, once you have insomnia, it's not being caused by the anxiety. It's being caused by the conditioning that's happened over time by being in the bed awake. So what do you do about this? Because so really, like, the way to address this is not through the anxiety. Now, so the problem this causes is if you think it's your anxiety, whether it's sleep anxiety, whether it's anxiety about other things in your life, if you think that is what's causing the insomnia, then you're going to put your attention there. And then what people will do is they'll take a medication to manage the anxiety. A lot of times a benzodiazepine, which is an anti-anxiety medication, will be prescribed for anxiety, or sometimes an antidepressant will actually be prescribed for anxiety, like Zoloft or Celexa or something like that, because those have an anti-anxiety effect. And then, you're trying to address the anxiety piece, not the conditioning piece, not the actual thing causing the insomnia. Now, that might calm you down. If it's a benzodiazepine like Ativan or something like that, that might knock you out because it's a sedative drug, but it's not because it's managing the anxiety. It's because it's sedating you. It would be the same as like just drinking a bunch of alcohol. Yeah, that's going to knock you out. But it's not getting to the source of the problem, because the source of the problem is not the anxiety. So What is the source? Well, it's that conditioning. And really, to get rid of the insomnia, it's not about addressing the anxiety so much as it's addressing the thing that's feeding the insomnia, which is the behaviors, right? So when someone tries to treat the anxiety that they think is causing the insomnia, the other thing that they might try in addition to medication is they go to like therapy. They'll go to the therapist and they'll say, I'm having all this anxiety around my sleep, or I'm having all this anxiety around my work or my finances. And I need to get that anxiety under control so then I can sleep. So they'll work with a therapist and they'll do sort of more traditional talk therapy, and to try to address the anxiety at sort of the cognitive or the thought level, like just thinking about or trying to resolve the anxiety, hoping that if they can get rid of the anxiety, then they'll be able to sleep. And this doesn't work because, number one, because the anxiety isn't causing the insomnia. Once the insomnia is set in, you remove the anxiety, the insomnia continues. Number two, you can't get rid of sleep anxiety by talking about it, because this is the tricky thing with sleep anxiety. What is sleep anxiety? As I said, it's worries about your sleep, about not sleeping well, about not getting enough sleep, about the effects of that during the day, like you won't be able to function, you won't feel good, it's going to impact your health, all these things, okay? Now, here's the tricky thing with sleep anxiety is it's not your imagination. You're actually not, if you have insomnia, you're actually not sleeping well. It is actually impacting your ability to function the next day. You do not feel good after you've only gotten 3, 4, 5 hours of sleep consistently. And over time, it will impact your health. And there's a lot of health risks with chronic long-term insomnia. So all the worries you're having, or a lot of the worries, are founded. They're reasonable. Okay, this is not like, an anxiety disorder where you're worrying about stuff that's never going to happen, or you have a phobia that's just completely false, or you're just imagining, worst case scenarios that are never going to come true. That is problematic anxiety that should be addressed in like a talk therapy. But with insomnia, the anxiety around the sleep there's a lot of reality based in those worries because you actually are not sleeping. It's not your imagination. So then how do you convince yourself not to worry about your sleep if you're not sleeping well? And that's why people have a hard time resolving that sleep anxiety, just going to like a traditional talk therapy. So here's the kind of cool thing around insomnia is that when you go through, and like when I work with my clients, the process that we go through is 95% behavioral, meaning it's changing your behaviors around your sleep itself at night, when you go to bed, when you wake up, what you do in the bed, what you don't do in the bed, all of your actions and your behaviors around your sleep. 95% of getting rid of insomnia comes down to the behaviors, and it's not the mind part or the cognitive part or the anxiety part, the emotional part. That's maybe 5%, and that is part of the process. It's the very first thing we do is we focus on getting you into the right frame of mind and starting to shift those negative sleep thoughts to more positive sleep thoughts. But really, if we just did that, we wouldn't make any progress because as I was saying, a lot of those negative thoughts are real and based on the fact that you're actually not sleeping. So how do you get rid of sleep anxiety? You improve the sleep. As your sleep improves, and you see that with your own eyes, and you see that with the data, because we track the data, and you see with your own eyes, my sleep's getting better, your anxiety starts coming down automatically because you're seeing your sleep improve. And as your sleep improves, you're going to start thinking differently about your sleep. You're going to start thinking, oh my God, things are getting better. I feel better. There's hope. I will be able to overcome this. And those are positive sleep thoughts. And so really the key to getting rid of sleep anxiety is to improve your sleep. And the way to improve your sleep is not to focus on the anxiety. It's not to focus even so much on the thoughts around your sleep, but around your behaviors with your sleep. And so that's where we put most of the focus when you're going through the treatment or the process to overcome insomnia. I have my clients focus on the things that they can do, the behaviors they need to change, really key core behaviors that will break the pattern of insomnia and eliminate the bad pattern of insomnia. And as they do that, their sleep starts to improve. And we know this because we track the sleep all the way through. And as their sleep starts to improve each week, their thoughts around the sleep become more positive. The anxiety starts to go down. And normally 4 or 5 weeks into the process, the negative sleep thoughts go away. The worry pretty much goes away, or it's greatly reduced, because now their sleep is better and they're feeling much more optimistic and positive about the sleep. And therefore, the anxiety starts to go away. Okay, so really the anxiety when we're treating or we're dealing with chronic insomnia, the anxiety is addressed primarily indirectly. We could sit around all day and try to convince you not to be anxious about your sleep, but if we never do anything about improving your sleep, then we're not getting anywhere, right? You might feel a little bit better about your sleep, but it's not going to solve the insomnia. Maybe some of you have experienced this before. We have to go at addressing the sleep by changing the behaviors. And as we do that and your sleep starts to get better, then the anxiety indirectly starts to get better, because you notice and you see with your own eyes that your sleep's getting better. Okay? So that's kind of the cool thing about the process, is we don't have to deal a lot with the anxiety directly. We do a little bit, and there's things we do all the way through just to keep your mindset good and in the right frame of mind, and so you're not pulled into that anxiety. But primarily, we're having you focus on doing some really key, powerful behavior shifts around the sleep. And that is the thing that's going to get rid of the insomnia. And that's the thing that really initially caused the insomnia, was the behavior. And that's the thing that's maintaining it now and will maintain it indefinitely unless those things are changed, not so much the anxiety piece. All right, so I hope that's all clear. And that gives you kind of maybe a different way to think about the insomnia, and maybe explain some things about why it's so hard to get rid of that anxiety, or if you don't have the anxiety, why you're still feeling alert and keyed up and still have the insomnia. So I hope this was a helpful video for you today. Please, if you like the video, just click like. And if you have any questions or comments, you can put those below. Any other questions you want me to answer around your sleep, let me know as well in the comments. And I'll see you next time.